Being an MMA fighter is no walk in the park, even if you're one of the best. Losses are part of the game, like 3, 4, or maybe 5 of them. There's just this unspoken truth that you're going to rack up some losses in the game. But some MMA fighters manage to turn their life around by starting their own businesses. Stay tuned to find out how they made it. Getting that thick skin ready to handle the hits is what makes real entrepreneurs different. Embracing the losses is the gateway to focusing on the wins. It's a mental shift that some fighters on the edge wrap their heads around. Once they grasp the reality that losses are just a part of the journey, that's when they start stacking up those W's. Besides, UFC fighters aren't paid enough, and it's been heavily debated for ages. So, fighters end up venturing into businesses when they're not throwing punches to make ends meet. And the more popular you are as a fighter, the better your side hustle tends to do. Just look at the success stories of Conor McGregor and Jorge Masvidal in the business world. When fighters play their cards right, these side gigs can be a gold mine. Now, we all know how successful and rich McGregor has become in and outside the octagon, especially with his proper number 12 Irish whiskey brand. But let's circle back to him later and talk about Jorge Masvidal first, because he has his own liquor brand too. Jorge Masvidal is the former UFC welterweight title challenger, and he isn't just about the octagon life. He's got a few projects on the side. One of them is his own mezcal company called Recuerdo Mezcal. Mezcal is a very famous Mexican spirit that comes from the agave plant, and it's unique because of its rich and smoky flavor. It's deeply rooted in Mexican culture, which is probably why it was Masvidal's liquor of choice. Seems like branching out into the booze business is a trend for UFC fighters, and Masvidal is riding that wave with his mezcal venture. Sure, he's not the first fighter to dip his toes into this kind of thing, but Masvidal's massive popularity sets him up as a strong contender for success in this field. The company, based in Oaxaca, southwest Mexico, first hit the scene in the US, making waves in Florida, California, and Texas. And reviews for Recuerdo Mezcal have been pretty good, hinting at a potentially big future for the company. And hey, while Masvidal might not openly admit it, this business is definitely a nod to the success of a certain rival fighter's whiskey brand. Yep, I'm referring to Conor's whiskey. Stick around, we'll dive into that towards the end of the video. But that's not the only thing on Masvidal's plate. He's also the brains behind the Gamebred Fighting Championship, a bare-knuckle MMA promotion he kicked off in 2021. With 9 events under its belt and over 70 matches, the promotion seems to be doing pretty well for being just a few years old. The bare-knuckle twist comes from Masvidal's roots in underground street fighting. The promotion has hosted some of the best talent, including Brock Weaver from the Contender Series and former NFL star Frank Gore. Now, how big Gamebred Fighting Championship can get is still up in the air, but it's been successful so far, riding on Masvidal's popularity. Oh, and fun fact, Gamebred is also a part owner of the Icon Fighting Championship, available for your viewing pleasure on UFC Fight Pass. And then there's Dustin Poirier with his successful hot sauce business. Poirier's Louisiana hot sauce is a surprising side project that popped up around the time of his second and third fights with Conor McGregor. This isn't your ordinary hot sauce either. There are several different flavors to choose from, each with its own level of spiciness. Even McGregor himself gave the sauce a thumbs up, although he changed his mind before their final trilogy bout. What makes this hot sauce stand out is that it's a unique project that pays tribute to Poirier's roots as a Louisiana native. Plus, it's not just about the heat, it's about doing some good. The proceeds from the sauce sales go to the Good Fight Foundation, which is a cause close to Poirier's heart, aiming to provide 300,000 meals to families in need in southern Louisiana. As for Poirier's career in the octagon, he's currently without an opponent since his TKO loss against Justin Gaethje in July 2023. But he's still recognized as one of the top lightweights in the world. So, fans are eagerly waiting to see what's next for Dustin Poirier. And of course, his hot sauce. James Krause is another fighter who's on a hiatus. Krause is also recognized as one of the best in his welterweight class, and like Poirier, he's been absent from the cage since October 2020, which has his fans wondering if he'll make a comeback. The truth is, Krause has turned his focus to coaching during his break from fighting. He's been spending his time managing multiple gyms and mentoring emerging fighters. Despite the speculation about his return to the ring, Krause's dedication to coaching is clear as day, with his active involvement in cornering his students' fights in the UFC. Coaching has become Krause's passion, and he takes pride in watching his fighters succeed, emphasizing the fulfillment he gains from the role. Beyond coaching, Krause has also played an important role in transforming the MMA scene in Kansas. His gyms, particularly Glory MMA and Fitness, have produced some of the best fighters, and they continue to contribute to the flourishing MMA community in Kansas. But he's not just a coach, he's also a co-founder of the Kansas City Fighting Alliance, which is now known as the Fighting Alliance Championship that has elevated the status of MMA in Kansas. In short, while he may not be actively competing in the UFC, his impact extends far beyond the octagon. He has become a legendary figure by coaching, nurturing local talent and solidifying his reputation both in and out of the cage. But some fighters haven't been as lucky. Elliot Marshall is another MMA fighter turned entrepreneur who faced a major setback when he was let go in 2011, after just 4 years in the game no less. But instead of letting the disappointment hold him back, Marshall decided to pursue his dream of becoming a martial arts teacher just 3 days after his last UFC fight. Despite financial challenges, including a $500,000 investment in a rundown building in Denver, he was determined to make his dream a reality. That's why Marshall's Easton Training Center became a success story, which now has 9 locations across Colorado. Even with no prior business experience and being more accustomed to punching faces than crunching numbers, Marshall navigated the challenges of a business on the fly and still succeeded. How did he do this? Well, from recognizing issues like employee turnover to unproductive meetings, he changed his approach by prioritizing a culture where everyone felt valued. He essentially centered around a key principle, which was respecting everyone's time. And even when Marshall struggled in 2016, describing it as a mental breakdown and spiritual awakening, he got help, became stronger, and continued steering the ship of his business. In short, Elliot Marshall transformed being ousted from the UFC into a successful business journey, showing everyone how to be resilient and adaptable. Let's finally bring our attention to Dana's star boy, Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor's proper number 12 Irish whiskey is probably the most successful business venture out of all the fighters turned entrepreneurs. In fact, McGregor and his partners sold the majority of their stake in the business to Proximo Spirits at around $600 million in 2021. This shows just how good McGregor and his partners are at decision-making. Like all the fighters we've talked about, proper number 12 is also deeply rooted in McGregor's proud Irish heritage and capitalizing on the love for whiskey in Ireland. It's become so popular now that it's now a major player in the liquor industry. Beyond making money, the company also donates a significant amount to support first responders globally. Not only is McGregor one of the highest-earning athletes in history, he has found new avenues to increase his wealth outside the octagon. Sure, he no longer holds the majority ownership, but he's still actively involved. You'll often see him in their commercials to help build the brand. It not only helps him earn more money, but also to stay linked with a business that reflects his unique style. The one thing all these MMA fighters turned entrepreneurs have in common, though, is staying true to their roots, and that's probably the biggest reason for their success. Just look at Khabib, following in his father's footsteps and coaching the next generation of Dagestani champions. But that's a story for another video. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out.